So shocking that one of my sons came to me and called me and was like, I don't know what to do. I'm afraid mom is going to die. Does that help?
For 2 years, you followed me down so many rabbit holes, chasing the secrets hidden away in dark places no one thinks to investigate. The closets that families fill to the brim, exploding with mysteries. But now, my life is undergoing major changes. A new country and a new closet to explore. Welcome to Rabbit from the Closet, where the secrets don't stay hidden for long. Welcome back to Rabbit's Closet. If you're here for a quick 1-minute rundown about Kevin Federline's new book, trashing his ex-wife Britney Spears, and commending his own handling of all situations, then it would need to be summarized like this. I, Kevin Federline, had an okay childhood, but sometimes things were hard. It's a good thing. I'm just a really amazingly talented dancer. Vibing is important to me. The vibe is good when I have plenty of hash on hand. And no one is asking me to help with chores or to take care of my 6 children on my own. The vibe is bad when someone tries to tell me that I smoke too much hash or that I need to help out around the house. Me no likey. But it's okay, because I can always just smoke marijuana and ignore everyone around me. Man, that Britney is one crazy bitch. She tried to use nannies to take care of my kids. Only I am allowed to use nannies to take care of my kids. Give me more money, please. I deserve it. Thank God my kids had me, Kevin Federline, to raise them with the total and complete intervention of nannies. End scene. Now, in the last 1 or 2 chapters of the book, Kevin does take a moment to thank other people who were around and kind of did all the work for him. It really doesn't fit in with the rest of his writing style, so I'm guessing his ghostwriter kind of said, hey, Kevin, like maybe at some point we should say thank you for the millions of dollars you've received and everyone who showed up, your mom, the nannies, security, all paid for by Britney to take care of you and the kids while you were being a drug addict. And he put it in there, guys. Like, he's a good man. He's a grateful kind of person. And that really summarizes what this book is all about. But for those of you who just can't get enough of Kevin Federline, let's go a little deeper. Page by page, chapter by chapter, but we're gonna finish this in one video because I cannot stand this loser. Chapter 1. At 19 years old, Kevin Federline had been through an awful lot. At 13, he had chosen to drop out of school. He doesn't mention that in this book, but I'm aware from other interviews with him.
Kevin Federline, what's good?
What up, man? What up?
Welcome to Vlad TV.
Thanks, bro. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Definitely.
So, where'd you grow up exactly?
I grew up in Fresno, California.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you ended up actually dropping out of high school.
I did. I went and took my GED.
And he really focused on growing marijuana, distributing it and smoking it himself. He hung out around the block and met a bunch of other guys who wore baggy jeans just like him. He realized this was his crew, and these were really good vibes for him. They all like to dance together. And by dance, I mean jerk their bodies around in mismatched ways. And because there was such a small group of people doing this kind of seizure-like activity on a stage, he became one of the best. It kind of reminds me of this person that I know who is an amazing professor and author, but she was really honest with me one day. She told me she's over 60 years old, ready for retirement, and she told me that when she entered her field, there was literally no one else who was interested in it. This was like 40 years ago. So she had zero competition. And so therefore, she rose through the ranks incredibly easily. And when she was talking to me about her life now, she was like, I would never recommend that someone get into my field of study at this point in time because there's way too much competition. Now that there are thousands upon thousands of people going to school for this and doing a great job with it, like literally, you have no chance of getting to the point I'm at, having professorships, getting your books published everywhere. It wouldn't happen to me nowadays. Kevin is that person, but in spastic dance form. Kevin admits that he wasted a lot of time smoking marijuana. But eventually, a guy named Jimmy showed up in his life and inspired him to know that there was a higher calling called dancing in the background of rap stars' videos. Kevin learned and perfected his art. He even worked with someone we all know and love, Wade Robson. Wade had a lot of problems, and supposedly he's the one who broke up Justin Timberlake and Britney Spears. We'll get more into that later. But Fresno Jimmy, Kevin Federline's best friend, was also friends with Wade. They ended up all sharing an apartment or hanging out together or just sharing some drugs. I'm not really sure. It's not clear. Kevin Federline was quite amazing. I mean, when you put him up against the 4 other guys who were actually doing this kind of dance, sometimes he got picked for some low-level jobs. And eventually, even people like LFO, Pink, and Michael Jackson let Kevin dance behind them on stage. Kevin is really proud of all of this. Chapter 2. Kevin reminds us that he went on tour with LFO, and this is where he first met Britney. He was 21, she was 16. He claims she didn't even notice him, and he was too busy getting high and playing video games in the back of the LFO bus for him to have any interest in her. He went on tour with Pink, and he also played video games on her tour bus. Something happened that's very indicative of Kevin's lifestyle. He was specifically told by his manager and producer that he had to be very careful because they were flying into Australia. Kevin was extremely nervous, I guess, about flying. I mean, that's what he tells us. So he had one too many drinks, and by one too many, it sounds like he was drinking repeatedly throughout the entire flight. And when he stepped off of that plane, he was incredibly drunk, like falling around in the airport. So TSA pulled him over, spent some time going through his pocket, and Kevin was like, oh shit, I forgot I had some kind of illegal substance in my jeans. Kevin lets us know that he expertly removed that tiny paper from his pocket, threw it on the floor, and kicked it under the desk. And guess what? His stupidity actually worked. No one caught him with drugs. He made it through the line, and he was able to dance in Pink's world tour. He learned a lesson, and that lesson was he can get away with pretty much anything, and he doesn't have to change his behavior at all. He liked touring with people because it mainly consisted of him playing video games in the back of their bus. He danced with Destiny's Child and on the Drew Carey Show. Eventually, Michael Jackson decided Kevin was cool enough to be in one of his videos that I've never heard of before. It's called You Rock My World. So not like a super popular Michael Jackson video, but Kevin was allegedly in it. I watched the video and I couldn't find him. Still, this is like the height of Kevin's career. The vibes were still really good. And people like Michael were saying things to him like, run it. And then he would start dancing. Sometimes he was off by one beat, but it was okay because they let him try again. Kevin writes, this motherfucker opened his eyes and looks right at me. He could tell it was me who was off, even with his eyes closed. He knew exactly where it came from, exactly who it was. My stomach hit my throat. I felt exposed. Then he stopped everything and said, all right, let's run it again. Just calm down. The vibes were getting better and better. And in chapter 3, he met Shar Jackson. Refer back to the second video in this series, all about the absolute shitty and deadbeat way in which Kevin Federline treated Shar Jackson. But according to Kevin, in this part of the book, he and Shar were cool. They vibed really well. They met at a party. I mean, that's where Kevin meets pretty much everyone. He wanted a child with Shar, and he was helping her raise her 2 children from a prior relationship. Her mom was also super involved so that he and Shar could have alone time, a lot of alone time. But he really wanted a child because he was so incredibly stable and like a really good role model. But no one prepares you for fatherhood. And it turns out he didn't really have enough money to party 24/7 and take care of 3 children. And this is where he gets into the drama between Britney, Kevin, and Wade. He writes, "This was just before the drama involving Britney, Justin Timberlake, and Wade Robson."
Like Brian got underneath you in a full split under the bench, on top of him that way. So when you got a guy right behind you.
Wade had been close with Justin, but just after the rumors about Britney and Wade surfaced, Justin and the group parted ways with him.
You gotta be ready and willing for anything to happen.
But I'm scared.
You can't be scared. But you gotta get lost in it. And when anything makes you laugh, you gotta just live it.
Okay, well, the cameras not be on these cameras like that one.
And now Kevin's friend Marty was becoming the choreographer, which allowed Kevin to step in and be a dancer for Justin. Because back then, it was all about who you knew and whether or not you were supplying them with drugs. I mean, that's my assumption. He and Shar, they had some ups and downs. The main issue was if they were both working and they had enough money to feed Kevin's drug addiction and for him to party enough, everything was okay. But when times came around where some of that money needed to be used for the children they were raising, the vibes weren't good for Kevin. Kevin writes, "There were moments when bills went unpaid and the lights got turned off. I booked, you got served during one of those tougher times. It was an amazing opportunity and a great lifeline." Yes, friends, Kevin spends several more paragraphs going on about you got served because it was a really big deal for him. He loves his daughter, whose name is Corey. But life is starting to wear him down. I mean, there are like dishes to be done, and that's not fun. That's not a good vibe. Now here, Kevin blames his assumption that Shar was embarrassed of him because he was white on the downfall of their relationship. Yes, it's true. Kevin doesn't feel like Shar was embarrassed of him because he was a loser or because he didn't have any money and he wasn't taking care of his kids and he didn't like to do the dishes in the house. She was embarrassed of him because he was white. And this caused a lot of problems in their relationship because Kevin wanted to go out and walk the red carpet with her. He literally says that here. One of the biggest issues in their relationship was that she didn't want to walk the red carpet with him. So even back then, Kevin was a total fame-hungry monster. The kind that if you don't feed, he's absolutely gonna lose his shit. Sort of like the opposite of that 1980s movie. And Shar, trying to be a responsible adult and raise her children in a non-fame obsessed kind of way, was hitting Kevin with some bad vibes. They tried to make it work. But guys, it wasn't anyone's fault. Least of all Kevin's, but it wasn't anyone's fault. Sometimes things just don't work out. Like your wife doesn't want to walk the red carpet with you and isn't a multimillionaire, and that's really dragging you down. But they became great co-parents. That's Kevin's version. Please look back at video number 2 in this series so you can see what really happened between Kevin and Shar. It's absolutely disgusting. Here's what Kevin writes. "Ultimately, I realized forcing it wasn't working. It wasn't fair to Shar, to our kids, or to myself. I've always been a family-oriented person. I grew up in a big blended family, so the idea of family has always been important to me. But I also knew that staying in a relationship, just for the sake of the kids, wasn't the right move. Yeah, it was way better that I abandon them and leave them homeless, just so that it wasn't so unfair to all of us." Kevin is grateful for the lessons he learned from abandoning Shar Jackson. Chapter 4, Kevin meets Britney at a nightclub. According to Shar, this happened while she and Kevin were still together. She was pregnant and she had no idea that he was of a mindset to leave her. But according to Kevin, none of that is happening here, okay? This chapter is just all about how much he and Britney were meant to be together. They meet at a nightclub, and Britney is the one that's all over him. She wants him bad. The person that introduces them is a semi-famous backup dancer named Teresa, who later Kevin is going to claim Britney had some sort of a fling with. Now, when I read all the social media posts about Kevin writing about Teresa, everyone was like, Kevin claims that Britney cheated on him with Teresa. We'll talk about it later in the book, but that's not really, in my opinion, what Kevin is writing at all. And also, like, even if he was writing that, I just don't think it's true, because there was no ongoing relationship between them. It's just kind of like Kevin, who's fucking everyone left and right, walks in on Britney kissing Teresa. And that's it. He wasn't happy about it, but he basically just used it to get more money from Britney Spears and convince her to lock him down and marry him. We'll talk about that part later. So Kevin and Britney, they meet at this nightclub, and Britney's like, oh my God, you're like the most sexy thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm gonna take you back to my house where I have a sex gazebo like already set up. Everyone else is gonna leave, and we're gonna spend 3 whole days just nonstop doing you know what. Now, I believe this. I actually don't think that Kevin is making this part up. We've seen this and heard about this time and time again when it involves Britney Spears. This is something that's going to come up in my next video, in which I talk about the psychology behind being Britney. And hands down, we have ongoingly seen very hypersexual behavior from Britney Spears. I do believe that she's the kind of person who jumps on someone, brings them into a relationship. They're her everything, and she would do anything for them. She gives all of her body, all of her heart, all of her mind to that person for a short period of time until to the next guy or girl. So I believe that this chapter could be stunningly accurate. Kevin says he was thinking they would have a one-night stand, and they ended up spending 3 days together. Surprise, Shar! He doesn't want to talk to Shar at this point. He basically just gives her a phone call and lets her know that it's over. That's his version of events. Now, from his point of view, that all made sense because they really hadn't been together for a really long time, guys. Like, they just weren't vibing, you know? Shar was shocked and hurt, but from his point of view, like, this was a long time coming. Kevin writes, those first few weeks were a whirlwind, an emotional and sensory overload that I couldn't have prepared for if I tried. I remember calling my mom early on, trying to explain everything. Her response, though well-meaning, was rooted in disbelief. She thought I was calling about some one-night stand, and this whole thing would just blow over. But I had to spell it out for her. No, Mom, you don't understand. This is gonna be everywhere, especially on that red carpet that Kevin has been dreaming about walking down with a celebrity. The way that Kevin describes it, there was some serious intensity, like way too intense in the beginning of the relationship. He calls it a massive life-altering change in existence. You know, it's funny because Shar does back this up. When she's asked by a TV talk show host why, like, Kevin did this to her, how could he, like, what reason did he have behind it? Shar flat out says, you're taking someone who didn't have a lot in his life. I mean, from my point of view, he seems to be living a pretty good life. Like, he seems to have plenty. But from his point of view, and Char's acknowledging that, he didn't have enough. And then all of a sudden, this mega superstar, highly loved and hailed beauty walks into his world, offers him everything, all kinds of money, crazy vacations, sexual favors, 24/7. And Shar flat out says, like, he could not resist it. I do have some issues with Shar because I feel like she very much, like, subtextually blames Britney Spears and says repeatedly what a good guy and what a good father Kevin Federline is. I think we've proved in prior videos that's just not true. And although Britney played her part in this, Kevin is the one I think Shar should really be angry with. So this was all great for Kevin. He's excited to be able to live in Britney's mansion. Can you imagine what's going on at home with Shar and her children? She has a 9-year-old daughter. Kevin has been a part of their lives for 3 years. He disappears for 3 days and then calls them and lets them know he won't be coming home and moves into Britney Spears' mansion. And it's all over the tabloids. I mean, the way that he did this is so beyond deadbeat dad. It is incredibly selfish, and it's disgusting that now he's writing chapters about it, basically glossing over his part of hurting the crap out of Shar's children. But whatever, because he was in love. They were in love, guys, and sometimes you just gotta go where the vibes are good. Meets her assistant, Felicia, who he calls Fee. Most of us who lived through the time when Britney Spears was really popular, we should know about her assistant, Felicia. Maybe even a better mother to Britney. And it's really weird how a couple of years later, Britney just kicks her out of her life.
That was pretty cool. You know, I don't know that I ever really had any definition on what I was supposed to do with Britney. For a long time, they called me her chaperone, and then at one point they wanted to call me her partner, and we didn't think that sounded right.
Now, one thing about Felicia that I've seen in video after video is Felicia is a lot like Britney's mom in that she just kind of says whatever Britney wants to hear. She's incredibly supportive. Like, Britney, you want to jump off the Eiffel Tower? You go, girl. You got it. You're amazing. That is Felicia's personality. And we see that a lot from Lynn too. And it definitely, something we'll talk about later, is part of what contributes to Britney's outlook on the world. It's part of what got her to the place that she's in right now. According to Kevin, all of Britney's team really loved him. The tour was great. The vibes were good. Some people on the tour knew Shar, and they brought it up with Kevin, and he just basically was like, guys, man, like, we just weren't vibing. And apparently the other guys are like, oh, totally get it. Yeah, you weren't vibing. So he's with all these people who knew him from his prior life, and they're just kind of accepting that he is now with Britney. Now, here's the thing that I think is really funny. According to Kevin, all these people around himself and Britney kept coming up to Kevin and saying, whoa, man, do you know what you're getting yourself into? I'm really worried about you. Like, Britney is a mess. You know, this is according to Kevin. You know, I'm sure no one was going to Britney and being like, why are you with this loser? You know, according to Kevin, everybody was really worried for him. And he had to ignore all of those naysayers because, like, they be vibing, guys. It's like Popo's out to the extreme. And that's Kevin's, like, number 1 million non-hit that he wrote later in life. But anyway, they're Popo's outing. And he's going to ignore all these people saying all this horrible shit about Britney because he's never going to become one of those people. Someone who says horrible shit about Britney. That'll never be him. Britney takes him all over the world, and he stays in the nicest hotel rooms and gets whatever he wants. But this too was hard for him. It's not easy, like being the man that has to support a superstar who gives you everything you want. And one day, out of nowhere, when they were about to get it on, Britney said, wait a sec, left the room, and Kevin was like, where did she go? She's been gone for like a few minutes. He walked out to find her, and oh my God, shocking, he walks in on her kissing Teresa, another backup dancer, and he's like, are you kidding me? Yeah, we're all drunk and high, but this is unbelievable. He cannot believe that Britney is acting this way. Now, indications are that Kevin was exactly like this as well. They were all being crazy because that's what they did on these tours. And Kevin described it in earlier tours with LFO and Pink. This is what people do. But he is kind of setting it up like, I can't believe she did this to me. He storms away because this is just injustice. And starts packing his bag. He calls Felicia and lets her know, you gotta get me me out of here, man. You get me a ticket right now, because even though I'm leaving Britney, I still want her to pay for everything. And Felicia's like, oh, calm down, it'll be okay. Britney walks into the room and she's like, oh my God, what did I do? I'm so sorry. Because from her point of view, it's probably like, this is what we do. You do it, I do it, we're all on drugs, what's the big deal? And Kevin's like, I thought we had something special. I'm not the kind of man who wants to be in a threesome, Britney. No, no, no. And Britney was like, oh my God, I had no idea that you felt this way. Wow, you're like really committed and such a good father. So he unpacks all his stuff and they F-U-C-K right then and there, cementing the fact that they're gonna move rather quickly into a state of engagement. Kevin's a genius when it comes to this whole scenario, right? I mean, I think that Britney is highly easy to manipulate, and this was part of the big manipulation of Kevin moving Britney towards marrying him, giving him everything he wants without ever actually saying that that's what he wants her to do. Because the general vibe of this book is that it's all on Britney. Like, she wanted this. She wanted me to have like dozens of Ferraris and drive them really fast through the Hollywood Hills. That was what Britney wanted, and I was just doing it for her. They get back together, thank God, or else we wouldn't be here reading this book. And in chapter 6, they return back to the United States. Britney's taken him all over Europe. They go back to New York, and he's staying home in a hotel while she goes to rehearsals because, once again, he's doing nothing with his life. He's home in the hotel when she gets into some kind of accident and blows out her knee, okay? This resulted in having to cancel the rest of the tour or whatever bullshit they were up to, and them having to stay home alone together and do nothing all day in New York City, where they have plenty of access to drugs, partying, and hanging out with people that you and I would consider scary. But during that time, Kevin supported the hell out of Britney. Yeah, I mean, they had hired people to take care of her, but he was right beside her playing video games and being like, you go, girl. While Britney was likely like overly drugged from pain medication because her knee had been blown out, he really gets into her psyche. They have deep conversations about how they should be moving towards marriage. And it was only like a month later, they went back to LA and started looking for a ring. Now, this is one of the funniest parts of the story for me. Britney tells Kevin she really wants a vintage ring, and of course she's gonna pay for it. She goes out, they find the ring that she wants. They obviously have like a special jeweler meet with them. She loves this beautiful ring, but about a month later, she decides she wants something a little bit better. Kevin goes on for paragraphs about how he took this small vintage ring that just wasn't good enough for Britney anymore, and he made it into a pinky ring for himself that he still has to this day. Because, you guys, it's all about jewelry and money. Literally, the rest of this chapter is about what kind of jeweler they use, the fact that they got jewelry repeatedly for each other, and how cool it was for Kevin. It was a good vibe. They were gonna get married, so Britney's all into planning the wedding. Kevin goes into like a nothing part of the book where he's very invested in convincing us that he just really needed to meet Britney Spears' father, Jamie, and ask him for her hand in marriage. That goes on for paragraphs. Now, why it was so hard to meet with Jamie, we have no idea. Other than Jamie was an alcoholic and he was in and out of rehab during this period of time. So, I mean, Kevin, like, he's already really vibing with the whole deal that goes on with this family. A lot of them are using and abusing drugs in the background of all of this. Britney is the one that gets held responsible for her drug use, for the crazy shit that she does. But the other family members are in the background doing crazy shit as well. Kevin, he's an honorable guy. So he's waiting patiently for Jamie to get out of rehab so that he can ask Jamie for Britney's hand in marriage. I mean, this is going to take at least a couple weeks. And during that time, guess what? Shar Jackson goes into labor, because that's right, he has someone else pregnant, literally about to squeeze a basketball out of her vagina just down the road from where he and Britney are living in a mansion. He lets us know that he showed up at the hospital and he was there for a few minutes before going up to the roof, looking out over the city and just saying to himself, wow, I did a good job. At what? We don't know. That's just like the whole scene of him being in the hospital. Yes, Britney drove him there. Yes, Britney was aware of what happened. Now, Britney today says that she didn't even know what was going on. But I don't know if she was like too drugged out to really understand the whole situation anyway, or if she's lying. Who knows? We can sum up this chapter with the wise words of Kevin. He says, life is messy. Britney was incredibly supportive of Kevin, having this baby with another woman like a month after they met. And you do get the feeling that Britney was like, oh my God, I love the fact that I'm stealing this guy from someone, and I just know he's going to be a great dad, because he already is a great one. He showed up at the hospital. Britney made some really poor choices at this point in time. But given the fact that her dad is busy in rehab, we can kind of see where she gets the idea of what a good man is supposed to be. And the fact that Kevin, wanted to arrive at the hospital high, see his baby for a few minutes, and then go hang out on the rooftop means a lot to Britney. Kevin writes, through all of that, Britney and I were still moving forward with the wedding. Life didn't slow down. It kept coming, wave after wave. We got married in September, 5 months after we got engaged. Chapter 7. This chapter is some writing in which Kevin goes into the fact that he has a hang-up about believing that Britney was still in love with her ex, Justin Timberlake. He lets us know that shortly before the wedding, he caught her out on the balcony on the phone with someone. The conversation sounded really intense. When he asked her about it, she said, I was just calling Justin to let him know what's going on. And I really love you, but I just needed to say goodbye. And Kevin lets us know that was hard for him. It was a little bit hurtful, I guess. I mean, he caught her kissing Teresa. He caught her, on the phone with Kevin. And I mean, he has no baggage that he's bringing to this relationship. Like, forget about the baby mama who just gave birth like a month after he met Britney. But like, he has no baggage that he's bringing. And Britney Spears is just, she's hurting him. This isn't easy for Kevin. To this day, people still bring up in all the Britney forums that Britney seems a little bit obsessed with Justin Timberlake. We're going to talk about that later, because I do have a lot to say about that situation. When she goes on Instagram and dances around with knives and does all this crazy stuff, it is so frequently, like I want to say 60% of the time, it's to Justin Timberlake music. And she knows what she's doing when it comes to that. She definitely romances him still to this day, like romanticizes about him. I don't necessarily believe they're in contact or anything like that, but she kind of looks back, I believe, on that time in her life, and she's stuck there. Like, she never grew beyond it. That's part of what we see on her Instagram, and I think she really wants to go back to it. They were supposed to have a really grand wedding, but the paparazzi found out about it, so Kevin was like, hell to the no. We wanted this to be private. I don't believe that at all. But anyway, for whatever reason, they decided they were just going to all get together and have a hillbilly wedding with just immediate family and their closest friends. Britney flew all of her family in from Louisiana, and the deal was done. So then they jetted off on their honeymoon to Fiji, and it's everything you would expect. They stayed on an isolated island where they were the only people. It was a turtle island. They swam around in the ocean, and they were snorkeling or whatever. But Kevin has a lot of complaints about this because there was no Wi-Fi. Literally, that's what these paragraphs in this chapter is about. Like, it was crazy that he got to go to this amazing island, but it was hard for them because they didn't have access to their phones. Their phones didn't work 24/7, and even though it was good, it was also not a good vibe. They returned to reality, and reality was living in a 9-bedroom mansion in Los Angeles with servants. And it was only a few months later that they found out that Britney was pregnant with their first son, Preston. Britney was incredibly happy. He writes, she was glowing, radiant with joy. That time was all about us, building our relationship, dreaming about the future. Chapter 8. They lived in Malibu in this huge mansion, and for Kevin, this felt like the golden years. And by years, I think they were together for like 3 years of time. So they live in this big mansion in Malibu. Kevin makes a huge deal about how they're gonna buy this new place, because Britney, she already has tons of mansions and apartments, but Kevin wants a place that's truly his, right? And he wants to contribute. He wants to contribute financially because he's not a deadbeat, you guys. Like, are you kidding me? So how how he manages to help out is that he signs a deal to do a reality show with Britney based on Britney's name. That reality show was called Chaotic. Many of us watched it back in the day. It's like the original film yourself with your, camera phone type of reality show. And Kevin states that he used the money he got from this reality TV show to help put a down payment on this mansion. So guys, he's helping. He's not taking advantage of her. He writes, "It meant a lot to me being able to contribute financially to a home we shared. But it wasn't only financial, you guys, because Britney was really into remodeling and redecorating the inside of the home." Now, there have been a lot of stories that have come out about the fact that the people who worked in this mansion when Kevin and Britney were together saw all kinds of crazy shit. And by shit, I mean real shit. Dog shit. You guys, the home was a mess. There was dog poop on the floors. No one was cleaning up after themselves. They had maids, but it was within the 6-hour period that the maid had to sleep. The place was getting completely trashed. But according to Kevin, this was an oasis for them. Britney was very devoted to decorating the inside of the house, and the rest of this chapter is about how Kevin did an amazing job redecorating the yard. Kevin sets it up he gave his all, every ounce of strength, carrying stone pavers from Home Depot to the back of that huge mansion and placing them delicately. He sets it up like he built a pool for them. And this was sort of his main job during this period of time. He's really proud of himself about it. When you look into it further, you realize that what really happened is that Britney paid for a bunch of people to do all the real labor, and Kevin stood there for maybe a couple of hours a day and directed them. But this, according to Kevin, was his dream project. He writes, "I put everything into it. I was laying stone and planting grass. But more than that, I was laying the groundwork for the next 20 years of our lives. I pictured family barbecues, kids running around, music playing, drinks flowing. It was the first time in a long time I felt we were planting roots, not just moving in somewhere." Preston was born, and it was amazing for Britney. He describes the birth as being a really positive situation, and Britney literally glowed when she held her baby. But it was only 2 months later that Britney got pregnant again. They were really hoping for a girl. Now that's something I haven't heard before. Britney really wanted a girl, although they were happy enough to have a boy again, but this was important to Britney. She wanted to grow a large family. After the birth of their second son, Jaden James, this is when Britney and Kevin decide to settle in to their Malibu home and be a family together. Chapter 9, the shit hits the fan. Everything had been quiet on the home front. Britney was letting Kevin do whatever the F he wanted to do. But all of a sudden, it's as soon as she had 2 small children, she suddenly needed all this help from him. I mean, it's ridiculous. What did she expect? She knew how he was before this. She knew who he was, and now she wants him to be someone totally different. Someone who cleans up after himself, maybe does the dishes once in a while. This is ridiculous. No, thank you, ma'am. That's literally what Kevin writes about in these next few paragraphs. And something that complicated all of this is the fact that paparazzi, Kevin writes forever about this, but we can sum it up by saying there were paparazzi around them at all times. And it wasn't always easy. The end. Except that Kevin wants us to know there was a situation, for example, where Kevin flew off to Las Vegas. Britney had only, just had her son 2 weeks ago, but he flew off to Las Vegas, and he claims he didn't even want to be there. He was just there for his friend's bachelor party that he was paying for, so he had to go. But he didn't plan to stay very long, and he had set it up so they would, be gambling and going to a strip club. But he did this only for his friend. It had nothing to do with his wants and needs. He only planned to be there for a short period of time. But do you know what the paparazzi did to our little guy, Kevin? They set it up so that they could get a picture of him staring at a stripper's boobs. You guys, when you read these paragraphs, Kevin relays an incredibly intricate plan put into place by some random paparazzo to make Kevin stumble into this stripper and then accidentally, through no fault of his own, look down at her breasts so that he could take a picture. He didn't even know the stripper. She wasn't even around. The paparazzo paid her to come up to him. He didn't involve himself with this. But see what the paparazzi were doing to Kevin Federline? It's not Kevin's fault, you guys. It's all here in these pages he's written for us. Kevin didn't like it because the paparazzi often tried to make him the villain, because they had all these pictures of him staring at a stripper's breasts. And this caused drama at home for him, and he had to have a massive wake-up call that he just can't trust these paparazzi. The wake-up call wasn't maybe he shouldn't go to Las Vegas, maybe he shouldn't put himself in situations where strippers are dancing around him, maybe he should stop cheating on his wife, stop doing drugs. There's no wake-up call like that. The wake-up call was that he could not trust the paparazzi. They lived in a massive house in Malibu, and he just wants to thank the sheriff's department for, the fact that he would give them money and they would turn a blind eye to whatever was going on with him and protect him from these mean, awful paparazzi people. Chapter 10. Fame didn't change Kevin Federline. He lets us know that he was always a cocky asshole long before Britney made him famous. That's literally what he writes in this chapter. Fame didn't change him because he was already awful to begin with. He writes, confidence over cockiness. Confidence over cockiness has always been my mantra. He admits that he came off as cocky, but it was just him being confident in himself. He also admits that he looked like an arrogant asshole. But now that he's much older, he can look back and realize that he had reason to be, you guys. And honestly, it's okay that he was making mistakes. He was only in his 20s with 6 children. He needed to learn and grow, so drop it already. In this chapter, Kevin wants to make it clear that it may have been that Britney walked out on him, but long before she did so, he was done with this relationship. He had already realized that it was toxic. So you guys, it isn't that Britney left him in the gutter. It's that he matured enough to know that fame, sex, and money shouldn't be at the top of his list. He also didn't like it because Shar Jackson spoke out about the fact that she was pregnant when he left her for Britney. It was in a tabloid, and he just mentions it in one random paragraph to let us know that wasn't a good thing. No thank you, Shar. No, no, no. And once again, the paparazzi are the culprits of destroying his happiness. Lots of people met him. He was quite infamous at this point in time, but big famous people met him and they said to him wow, you're not who I thought you would be at all. And this further proves that the paparazzi were incorrectly portraying Kevin. In the background, he's a really good guy. Chapter 11. Growing up, Kevin had challenges. He doesn't mention it here, but to me it seems like his main challenge is that he dropped out of high school when he was 13 years old and started smoking marijuana 24/7. Not only that, but it turns out that Kevin's mom was a marijuana grower and dealer up in Oregon, even though Kevin was living with his dad in Los Angeles. And his mom would call him and give him tips on the best strains to grow and how to best grow them. Now, I'm not a person who's a prude about using these kinds of alternative medications. I mean, for a lot of people, it's a really positive adjustment and it can be used in a way that really benefits their lives. But when you read this book, you realize that Kevin is literally addicted to this medication. I think it would be bad for him to take it away now because since he was 13 years old, I'm pretty sure until now, he has been using marijuana non-effing stop. He used it all the time. And I do believe this is part of what attracted a person like Britney to him, is that his whole demeanor was just hey guys, vibes, chill. We just gotta chill out. I think for Britney, someone who was probably battling a bipolar kind of mental illness where she's manic, to have someone around her be hey, everything's okay. Just gonna smoke a little more, feel a little bit better. Hey, you're breastfeeding the kids with, some milk where you just had some cocaine, whatever. I mean, I don't want you to do it and I'll write about it later in my book, but gotta do what we gotta do, girl. This kind of attitude this whole mentality he created was based on using this drug repeatedly all the time. Another thing that he mentions in this chapter, which I just think is really funny, is that he makes friends with a little person. I think he's like 17 and the little person is 21. And he really likes this little person because this guy, I think his name was like Tuscan or something, got kicked out of school at the age of 17 for selling acid to his schoolmates. And Kevin realizes this is a great guy for him to hang out with. They hang out. And for me, the point of the following paragraphs is just that Kevin is describing to us what a pussy he is, right? He starts hanging out with this little person who is growing and housing all these drugs in his apartment. And one night, like a rival drug dealer breaks into the apartment, holds a gun to the little person's face, and ends up taking like some of the merchandise and leaving. And Kevin's just like, whoa. I'm sorry, Tuscan. I'm not gonna be able to hang out with you anymore. I don't like that. No likey. Me, no likey. I don't like when someone actually does something. I like you drugs, but I don't like you when someone actually steps to my little person friend and I am standing there like, I'm gonna run out the back room. Kevin is like, this is when I realized I can't be involved in this anymore. Drugs, yes. Suffering the consequences of using and dealing drugs, no. So for like a month, he doesn't hang out with Tuscan. And, it's like he made a total life change. But by month number 2, he's hanging out with Tuscan again. His name is Talon, by the way, which is a much cooler name. He's hanging out with Talon again, and the same thing happens once again. And again, Kevin responds like a total pussy to the situation. He's like, whoa. I know I said it last time, but this time I mean it. I'm not coming back. Now, he would have gone back. He literally says he probably would have gone back, except that someone else came along and swooped him up and got him to start hanging out on the corner dance studio and dancing with his jeans falling down to his feet. So that really kind of saved him from like being Talon's best friend for the rest of his life. Talon is cool, but this whole chapter is just, in my opinion, it's like Kevin telling on himself, which is what a lot of the book is. Chapter 12, Kevin writes, being with someone who has bottomless pockets is ... complicated. Okay. In this chapter, Kevin's trying to convince us that he didn't want Britney to be the sole breadwinner. And that's why he went to her and said, hey, just because I want to help you and like I feel bad that you're making all the money, can you give me a bunch of your money and set me up with all your contacts so that I can make my own hit single? Now, this is where you have to read between the lines and understand that subtextually, Kevin is claiming that Britney was like, sure, no problem, Kev, I really want you to succeed. But behind the scenes, she really was rooting for him to fail. You guys, that's the only reason why he didn't become a major, huge pop star. He doesn't say this, but it's there between the lines. He gives the aura of, like, he's really angry at her because he could have been someone great and people would have loved his stuff if she wasn't actively trying to destroy him behind the scene because she was jealous. You guys, she's just like jealous of him. Okay, but what he actually writes is, she was supportive, or at least acted supportive, of me wanting to do music, act, and explore the entertainment industry. That had always been my goal. Many of us know that Kevin goes on to have a disastrous music career. My favorite thing about his career is that he made this song called Popo Zow, and it's really funny to me that everyone made fun of him for it, but the people who made the best commentary about this song are the guys from Jackass, and I'm gonna let you listen to that right now.
What K-Fed is like, but he looks like a fucking jerk-off in those magazines.
Sucks so
it just looks like he's just trying to rape every dollar Britney Spears has. It's like almost annoying to even flick open a magazine and just see his stupid diamond earrings and his stupid gold watches and his stupid gold chains. Like, you could tell that he's just money hungry.
He's fucking Popo Zow, dude.
Papa Zow. That was the stupidest fucking song ever. It was so bad, he was so stoked on it. And then like a week later, he's just like, yeah, I'm moving on to bigger and better things. Like, that happened a week ago. It's not like it happened a year ago, you fucking idiot. Dude, you wrote Papa's Owl a week ago, and now you're moving on to bigger and better things.
Did you hear?
Papa's what?
Papa's Owl.
Popo Zow, dude.
What does it mean?
Yeah, it means shake your booty and...
It's Brazilian.
Brazilian?
Brazilian for shake your fucking booty.
Papa's Zow!
Yeah, exactly.
I just wanted to try it.
And the beat was like, the beat was all Brazilian jungle. Like,
Popo's out, Popo's out.
Dude, it was so like fucking. It was like
so
half-ass
bad.
Shakira sucky bullshit.
It's so bad.
Man.
He fucking only sold 60.
And I like Shakira.
He only sold 65.
He literally writes that he had to pay back the record company nearly $1 million of his own money. It was a real shock and awe eye-opener, one that taught me at great expense the importance of knowing exactly what you're signing up for. Chapter 13. This is about how it ended with Britney. One thing that annoys me about these chapters is the fact that Kevin kind of makes it like he knew things were not working out with Britney because she was one crazy bitch, right? So he was ready. He knew that it was going to fall apart and that he would have to leave her and everything. But then he was shocked when she actually left him and took all the money. And like he had to figure out his life. It's like totally unfair, right? So in the beginning of this chapter, he felt like he was just trying to juggle too much. It was too much for him. He had a 6-week promo tour for his album. And sometimes the music had to take a back seat to things that Britney needed. Because at this point in time, their youngest son, Jaden James, was only 6 weeks old. Okay, this is where the accusations start. First and foremost, Kevin accuses Britney of drinking and using drugs while she was pregnant and then also while she was breastfeeding. According to him, it wasn't so bad. Like, he saw her drinking, but it wasn't too much, so he was like, whatever. He didn't even care. It got a little bit more serious when he realized that she was gonna leave him anyway, so he had to make a bigger deal out of it. Also, Britney was acting crazy at home, and it of course never occurred to him that she was having some kind of postpartum psychosis or problem. Instead, he just felt like she was probably jealous that all the attention was gonna be on him for a little while, and like she had been such a big pop star for so long, and things were just sadly kind of cooling down for her, and things were going like this for Kevin. So unfortunately, she was just a little jelly belly. Okay, he also makes the point that she was drinking and using prescription medication that should not be used with alcohol. Okay, we can read a lot into this. I'm not going to go into it too much right now. I think that it's very common knowledge that bipolar medications many of them should not be used with alcohol. So I am wondering if that's the medication she was on. It can also be really dangerous to use these during pregnancy. So I wonder if she had to be off of it during the pregnancy. That could have caused some issues for her. But one of the biggest red flags for Kevin has to do with the fact that Kevin's not happy. And one of the things he's not happy about is that he didn't see his family as much, you guys. That's not on Kevin. That's Britney's fault. So according to Kevin, it was really annoying because Britney, who was breastfeeding, taking care of these 2 very young babies, and obviously really struggling with a lot of it, was not setting up a lot of family get-togethers at the house. They had a 9-bedroom mansion, and Kevin just felt like no one ever came over. And this reminded him a lot of Shar Jackson. You guys remember Shar didn't want to walk the red carpet with him and eventually decided she didn't want to go out and party so much. Oh my God, Kevin has walked into another relationship with a second loser who doesn't want to party with him. This is really hard for him. Now, he does make the accusation that many times he wanted to have his kids over, his 2 kids. He makes that clear. His 2 kids with Shar Jackson, not the 4, not the other 2 that he raised for 3 years. He's totally abandoned those. But the other 2 kids with Shar Jackson, he wanted to have them over, but Britney didn't like having them over. And when they did come over, she was like, they cannot spend the night. I mean, if she was saying this, I think there's a lot of things going on with Britney. Maybe she's like, they shouldn't spend the night because that's when, the witching hour hits for me and I'm getting up and running around with knives. We're going to hear about that later. I mean, I think for Britney, she wasn't well and no one was stepping in. That's one of the things about Britney is people didn't step in early on, not at all. We'll talk about all that later because I'm going to be talking a lot about how Adderall was pushed on Britney like it has been pushed on many stars at a very young age to keep their energy up, get them out on stage, be able to have them work. And Adderall is well known for having all kinds of side effects, but it is absolutely one of the worst drugs you can take when you have bipolar disorder. It can set off the mania, and there's a lot going on with that when it comes to Britney. He also lets us know that his mom was the only one really spending time with Char's kids. Another really sad fact. But it was gutting him. It was gutting him that Britney wasn't setting it up for all of his family to come over and visit him. Like, it's not like he could have done any of that, you guys. I mean, that subject isn't even broached in the book. It's never about Kevin didn't do something or maybe he could have done it differently. It's just about how Britney didn't set it up for him. And then the shit hit the fan. Because, they're 6 weeks into having their new son, Jaden James. Kevin is spending all his time at the studio recording his new music. And one night he goes out on the balcony and, starts smoking marijuana like he did over and over again. And Britney, out of nowhere, it was psychotic. Kevin can't believe she acted this way. Like, she's 6 weeks postpartum. Remember, guys, she's 6 weeks postpartum. But he can't believe she came out and threw a fit. She saw him smoking and got really upset. And this is where Britney's whole outlook on life is really skewed. Instead of getting very mad at him, she got mad at everybody around him. The security guards, the nannies, the maids. She ended up firing a bunch of people because she was angry that Kevin was spending all his time smoking marijuana. Now, I think it sounds like Britney was blaming the people around them for creating this mess, this chaos that is Kevin Federline. He was not helping her. Now, this is where Kevin breaks in and is like, what is going on here? Britney knew who I was. Britney knew that I smoked marijuana 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. She knew that. What you want me to do, change? Ridiculous. That is what he writes in this book, you guys. In defense of Britney, if you're a mom, you get it. What was acceptable before you had kids is not always acceptable after you have children, especially 6 weeks postpartum. In my own situation, I can say for sure, a lot of things that I tolerated with my husband before we had our children, I did not tolerate after we had kids. Part of that was helping me clean and cook and, take care of the baby. He needed to step up his game, and I made that very clear. Britney wants Kevin to stop using drugs and he is just incensed that she would even dare ask him. But a big part of this chapter is him throwing a hissy fit about the fact that he liked the people they had at that point in time when he was sitting out on the deck smoking marijuana. He liked all the people that were around him, the security guards, the nannies, whatever. Felicia, I think, was still a part of their lives. And the fact that Britney fired all these people that tolerated his shitty behavior, that really pissed him off. Now all his friends are gone. The people that did everything for him, took care of him, told him what a great little boy he was, they're gone, and he's not happy about that. And Kevin writes this involving Britney and their child. After the blow up outside, I went upstairs to cool off. That's when Britney came storming into the bedroom, holding Preston, and just ripped into me, screaming. I stayed calm, trying to decipher what was really going on. I wasn't hiding anything. She knew who I was. She married me knowing it, but she was on the warpath, shouting her head off. Then she slapped me right in the face with our son in her arms. Preston burst into tears. He felt it, that dark energy, so not good vibes anymore. Britney is acting like someone who is dealing with a lot of mental health issues after having her children, and she's surrounded by people who are not helping her. And this is the perfect example. This kind of behavior isn't good, but it's not totally outside of the norm for someone who is really struggling after having a baby. There's a lot of support that could have been put in place, like good support that taught Britney about boundaries. People that were able to say no to Britney, no to Kevin, that were actually able to help them. There was a lot of support that could have been put in place that wasn't put in place. And I think that Kevin and Britney had already started off this relationship as this is a relationship in which we fully support each other in being fucked fucked up. And so it was probably hard for family members or friends to really say or do anything. But Kevin could have chose to make some changes in his own life that would therefore positively affect Britney and then maybe help her be a better mother to her children. There was a lot going on, and it's something we'll have to talk about. But for Kevin, it's just all about the fact that he's like, what the hell's going on here? You're not gonna let me sit out all day and smoke? That's what I want to do with my life. He's angry. And according to him, he literally writes the whole vibe in the house shifted because she hired a completely new team. He frames it like these were people that I trusted. Now I don't trust these new people. But I think the new people just weren't putting up with Kevin's shit as much as he wanted them to. Chapter 14. This is all about the album release party on October 31st. Okay. There's an album release party on October 31st, 2006. I think it's for his song Popo's Out. And we already know that Britney has fully funded all of this. And he's going to have the release party, of course, in Vegas, where he was caught like staring at these strippers' boobs, but he didn't learn anything from it. So he's going to have this release party. And he asks Britney if she's going to come to it. And allegedly, according to him, Britney said no. Because again, he flat out says their new child, Jaden James, is only like 6 weeks old at this point in time. So he's like, I kind of understood, but it would have been nice if she was there to support me. You know, AKA walk the red carpet with me so that I could get some of the fame and attention that would bring to my album. So she says she's not going to come. So it sounds like Kevin kind of accepts this. He's not super happy about it, but whatever. He's going to go have a good time in Vegas. So I think he planned to do all this stuff and, you know, he had a certain idea of what it was going to be like because Britney wasn't going to be there. And then surprise, surprise, on the day of the release party, he walks into his trailer or room or whatever they give him, and Britney and all her family are there, and she's like, surprise, I'm here. According to Kevin, her family was outside of the room, but Britney was staying in the room he was given to relax in, and she was there with an unnamed upcoming star. I really believe it's Lindsay Lohan, but Kevin claims that the two of them just started doing cocaine, like big fat lines of cocaine on the table in whatever room they gave him to relax in that he was probably going to bring strippers back to. So he's not happy. Now, from his point of view, he's not happy because she's doing coke and he knows that she's going to fly home and that they're exclusively breastfeeding their children. So the whole chapter is about how disgusted he is that she's doing cocaine, and this is going to get into the system of his little children because she's going to refuse to give them formula. He doesn't say that she actually refuses, or she literally doesn't really say anything about it, but he's really angry because he assumes that she's just a shitty drug addict, and that really pisses him off. And it has nothing to do with the fact that he was going to bed a stripper in that room and he was shocked to find Britney there. It has nothing to do with that. It's all about the welfare of his children. So he's angry. And he writes that he told Britney, please don't go home and breastfeed the kids like this. Call your mom or someone. We need to get some formula. You can't do this. And then he writes, man, the look she gave me, the instant rage in her eyes, like she wanted to slap the shit out of me. Instead, she stood up, took her drink, and threw it straight in my face in front of everyone. My family, my best friends, the whole damn table. So he's really angry about this. He does mention that, I think this is interesting, that Britney ran over to his parents and started saying like, I can't believe it. What's wrong with Kevin? He doesn't love me anymore. And she makes this huge scene. And this also really pisses him off because this day is supposed to be about Kevin. But the main problem again was the welfare of his sons. He's angry about it. He calls home and he gets Britney's mom who's taking care of the boys, and he's like, don't let Britney breastfeed the kids. Meanwhile, all these people are coming up to him. He says Will from Black Eyed Peas came up asking if he's okay, and Kevin was just like, I can't, man, not tonight, I can't even go on stage. So he decides not to perform. He was supposed to perform, but he decides not to because he's so upset about whatever's going on with Britney. And the Black Eyed Peas had to get on the stage and perform for him. He writes, my mind was spinning. This was supposed to be my night, and instead it was a disaster. Okay, now Kevin alleges that he hears back from Britney's mom, and Britney's mom is like, Britney got home. I mean, I guess it's all combined into like a really short period of time, but she must have had to fly home from Vegas. So the mom is like, Britney got home and she kicked me out of the house. She's mad at me. Now, this is very common for Kevin. One of the major themes throughout the book is that he makes it clear Britney was always up and down with everybody in her life. And there were many times that she was like in love with her mom. Her mom was the best person ever, and her sister was the greatest. And then a week later, she had nothing but negative things to say about them. She refused to see them. She kicked them out of her house. Most of us who have worked on a psychiatric unit, we are well aware that this sounds an awful lot like bipolar. Now, Kevin, he's upset. You know, he's so upset about the fact that Britney is at home breastfeeding his children cocaine that he has to fly off to New York for another big trip because he had a promo lined up. Hot 97 TRL Webster Hall. It was all set and he needed to go because his album had just dropped, man. Now, Britney was supposed to go with him and she didn't, but he flew off to New York and he did what any man would do to a 6-week postpartum woman who's at home essentially in psychosis and doing coke. He totally ignored her, completely ignored her. She started calling him frantically, leaving messages, apologizing and saying, I wasn't myself, I need help, something's wrong. And he did what he had to do. He completely ignored her. Now, all of us women who have been there 6 weeks postpartum, we know that this is the absolute best thing you can do to a woman when she is completely losing her shit over having a new baby and she hasn't slept for many nights and she's also done coke as well. We can all understand where Britney was coming from. But you know, Kevin, in his wise way, he completely ignored Britney Spears and he contacted his lawyer, Mark Kaplan. Mark was the guy who had handled their prenup. Now, of course, he didn't contact Mark because he thought like Britney was mad at him about the stripper issues and was going to divorce him. That's not even brought up here. Even though that's what was said back in the day, it's not true, you guys. According to Kevin, he only contacted Mark because he wanted to have essentially a cease and desist written up for Britney Spears breastfeeding her children. He wanted her to cease and desist from breastfeeding. So, you know, he has the lawyer write this up and send this letter to her, and he continues to ignore the shit out of her while he's in New York partying, having a good time. And he also has to fly into Canada, like that's the next stop on his tour. Now, he does bring up something that I think is a big part of what has affected Britney negatively. Kevin writes, people around Britney like to say, it's her world, we're just living in it. And for a while, I believed that. Okay. Now, I think this type of mantra around Britney has created, or back then created, more chaos than there needed to be. Kevin, in the beginning of the book, he does talk about the pop singer Pink and how absolutely stable and determined she was. She was the same age as Britney. She was young, but she had her head on her shoulders. And I have read a lot about Pink, you know, truly being that way from day one, being stable, working hard, being grateful for everything that she obtained. I think Britney's whole lifestyle and the people around her, it was pure chaos. And they did have this mantra of, it's Britney's world, we're just living in it. This gave Britney this idea that she was in charge of everything, the world revolves around her, and I'm sorry, we still see that to this day, and it's not serving her well. I'm sorry, Britney fans, I'm sorry to the Free Britney movement who come into my comments and tell me that I'm an awful person for talking about this, but I'm going to be honest. I really can relate to Britney from the standpoint of being a woman and being a mother, and I feel bad for her, but I'm going to be honest about what's really going on with Britney. She's not perfect, and it needs to be talked about because there are average, everyday people who are dealing with some of what Britney is dealing with, especially from the mental health aspect. And we also have gotten a really good look at the fact that her sons have been very affected and somewhat traumatized by a lot of the things that have happened with Britney. Now, I'll be talking about Jaden and Sean and how they're also a little bit spoiled and they have a certain view of how the world should be, and when Britney isn't perfect, they don't like it. It's complicated. It's all very complicated, but Britney is not perfect. Okay, so Kevin is in Canada. He's completely ignored his 6-month postpartum wife who set up this entire album and tour for him, and he goes into a studio to have a meeting and an interview with some kind of radio jockey, and the radio jockey says to him, "How do you feel about Britney filing for a divorce?" And you guys, Kevin was totally shocked. He didn't see this coming at all. He had no idea, even though chapters before he told us like he realized their relationship was over the moment that she questioned how much marijuana he was smoking in the backyard. He knew it was coming, but he's totally thrown for a loop. He cannot believe that she's filed for divorce. He's also really angry because this news is affecting him negatively, and he's not able to give his best interview, you guys. So he hasn't seen Britney for quite a while because he's been in New York and then Canada. And when he flies home to LA, he's completely blindsided by the fact that Britney is done with him. He has no money, no house, no place to stay. He no longer has the security that were taking care of him, probably picking him up off the floor when he puked everywhere. Even the sheriff's department is not taking him seriously anymore. They're not giving him like ride-alongs where they protect him while he's swerving through the Hollywood Hills. So this was another situation in which he was really thrown for a loop, and it was a hard time for him. Bad vibes, guys, bad vibes. Chapter 15. The divorce is going forward. Kevin claims that Britney would call him randomly and he would literally hear his babies crying in the background while she was yelling at him. This was also the time in which she started hanging out with Paris Hilton and Lindsay Lohan, and he saw that all over the tabloids. And according to him, there was even a time in which she called him on the phone to yell at him, and he could hear Paris and Lindsay were in the car with her. This killed him. He couldn't stand like knowing that his kids weren't being treated very well, and he also couldn't stand that he had to move to Tarzana. You guys, it was shocking for him. He no longer got the mansion and he had to go rent a house in quote unquote Tarzana, and like that's not as good as Malibu. You guys, he literally lets us know that was really hard for him. But according to Kevin, he spent this time preparing this rented home in Tarzana for the boys to move into it because he's just a really good father. We don't hear anything about the other kids, you know, he's already had, but he was preparing for the kids. He bought a crib, he bought, you know, probably some more marijuana for him to grow at this new home. He got everything ready for the kids to move in with him. It wasn't because he was thinking, I better get those kids so I can get some money from Britney. It was just because he's a really good dad. The divorce was really hard at first because Kevin wasn't getting what he wanted. You guys, in the beginning, the courts were assuming that Britney would probably be the better parent because according to Kevin, the courts just have a history of favoring the mother. It's not because Kevin had a criminal record, he never graduated from high school, he doesn't have a job, he's been living off her forever. She has many people to come to court and say that he is smoking marijuana 24/7. None of that was the reason why. It was just because the courts are unfair to Kevin. But he was gonna fight for his kids because he loves all children, and he truly is the best father known to mankind. Now, a few weeks after Britney Spears was in the tabloids for hanging out with Paris Hilton and Lindsay Lohan, Kevin gets a phone call from Lynn, Britney's mom, and she says, we need you to come. We need you to come to this hotel in Beverly Hills for essentially an intervention we're doing. According to Kevin, Lynn and the rest of the family, they don't really give Kevin a lot of information. They just say, like, you need to come here and get the boys because we're doing an intervention for Britney and she's gonna have to go to some kind of rehab. And Kevin's kind of like, hell yeah, I'll be there. Because this is his his way to get his kids back, and he's excited about it. He arrives at the hotel and he says that everybody was looking really sad. Britney was crying. And one thing that I think is really weird is that both Lynn and Jamie, Britney's parents, were essentially like, Kevin, you need to take these kids. I think that's strange. I really find it weird that there weren't people around Britney that loved her enough to say, hey, Kevin, we want to work with you. We are going to take the kid. Britney has Britney has custody. We're going to figure something out where like you get to be around them as much as possible, but we're going to actually have a third party who is really sane, responsible, and stable take these kids so that they can be in a good environment, and then when Britney comes back out, she'll be able to have access to them. I think it's weird that her family was automatically like, screw these kids, we don't want to take care of them. Kevin, take them. I think this is where Britney's family, in yet another situation, really let her down. Giving those kids to Kevin kind of set off this whole precedent of Kevin was going to be the primary parent. That's not always a bad thing because Britney goes on to have a lot of issues, and that's discussed more in the book, and we see it. We know that there was a lot going on. But I really think that it's odd that her family was just like, yeah, Kevin, you take him. Well, you be a great dad. They knew that he had issues with drugs. They knew that he was already usurping all of her money. It's weird to me that they didn't care enough about those boys to kind of get them out of the situation with Kevin as well. Britney's crying at the hotel. Kevin's taking the kids. Kevin tells her, don't worry, you can have the kids anytime you want them. He also lets us know that when she goes off to rehab, he thought it was annoying that the press kind of got all these releases saying like she's just having a hard time, like she was using too much Adderall, which was prescribed to her. He doesn't like how there's always a spin that Britney didn't do anything wrong, okay? When he's like at home, she was really doing a bunch of stuff wrong. And this is when we find out that the moment Kevin gets home, he hires a ton of nannies, like all the people that used to work for him at the Malibu house, he just hires them back on to take care of his kids at his new house in Tarzana. And not only that, but he makes us fully aware that they're also having to take care of him because he's doing a lot of partying and he's using drugs. He flat out tells us he's still using drugs. But he's the more stable parent because he hired people to take care of his kids. Even though Britney had already hired a bunch of people to do it, it doesn't matter. From his point of view, he's doing what's right. Chapter 17. Kevin's mom to the rescue. Remember that marijuana farmer from Oregon? She ends up flying down and moving into the Tarzana house and helping take care of Preston and Jaden. And then also Kevin hires this nanny who he talks about for the rest of the book. And he even gives her like a big thank you at the end. Her name is Jenny. And she does seem like a really good person who takes good care of the kids. Britney is supposed to be in rehab, and then all of a sudden, Britney's security reaches out to Kevin. I think this is like a couple weeks later, and they're like, oh my God, Britney's on her way to your house, and it's not good. Okay. And Kevin's like, what is going on? Britney had left rehab, and this is the point at which we get all of those pictures of Britney in the tabloids where she arrives at Kevin's house and she starts throwing a fit. According to Kevin, she tried to climb the gate to get into his house. She was buzzing and repeatedly saying, give me my kids, I want my kids. And he chose not only to ignore her, but to go upstairs and hide in a closet with the kids while he sent his security guards down to deal with it. He said that his security people had to like push Britney's hands off the gate so she would like fall down on the ground. I mean, it's laughable and it's also really sad. You know, in my next video, I will address a lot of this, but this is a woman who, you know, she has mental health issues. She's also desperate. She's desperate for love. She wants to be around her kids. It's a sad situation. And I have seen people in my work as a psychiatric nurse who are dealing with issues like this. And it is incredibly sad to watch. So, you know, Kevin's hiding. His security get her away by like peeling her fingers off the gate. And she kind of turns around, gets in a car, drives off, and shaves her head. We've all seen those pictures. She's crying. She's a mess. Kevin says that she comes back to his area, and that's when she freaks out with the umbrella and hits a bunch of cars with her umbrella. And he's just like, whoa, man. She's a crazy bitch. He can't believe that this is happening. He never uses the term bipolar. He never talks about anything having to do with any kind of mental health. Like, it's just interesting to me that he didn't try to educate himself. In all these years, he hasn't tried to educate himself and kind of figure out a little bit more about what's going on with Britney. Basically, his whole response to it is like, it was crazy. You have no idea. I couldn't even believe it. He describes it as surreal. It felt like something out of a bad dream, he writes. He writes, I was shocked at seeing her like this, fear for what it meant for our kids. I kept thinking, what is going on? How did it get to this point? When you are around people with bipolar disorder and drug abuse issues, they almost all can very much relate to Britney Spears. I have heard many times people who have a really strong history of bipolar and drug abuse be like, Britney is 100% bipolar and she is using drugs, and like, I've been there. The things that she's doing are so classic of what I did in my past life. And I think this is another example where we really see something that would fit into the diagnosis of bipolar disorder. She's manic, maybe even psychotic, and that a lot of this happens directly after she gives birth to her second child. She might have always had a propensity for it, but the change in hormones has drastically affected Britney. And then the issues she's having in her life, they have contributed to her turning to drugs like cocaine. But for Kevin, the number one priority was his kids' safety. You guys, he knew that he was gonna have to protect his kids from that shit. And he also knew that it was time to go out and get fucked up, you guys. Because another part of this crazy chapter is how much Kevin likes to party. So he's partying, but he's the better parent because he gives all responsibility to his staff that Britney is paying for. And a year later, he starts working with Britney for Britney to have visits with the kids. And they had to go through exchanging the kids from Kevin to Britney. They were using nannies and security guards to do this because, of course, I really believe from the way that Kevin describes it, Kevin was so effing high in his house in Tarzana that he wasn't involved at all in some of the shenanigans that end up happening. His security guards were handling all of it. So his security guard Lonnie, who's of course his friend that he's had forever, keeps bringing the kids over to Britney's house, and she's having these visits with them. And about a year after the situation where she shaved her head, during one of the visits, Britney develops, and again, this has to do with being very paranoid. She develops a belief that Jaden, the younger child, is being abused at Kevin's house. So when the security guard from Kevin arrives, Lonnie arrives to pick up the boys and take them back to Kevin's house. Kevin isn't there. Britney refuses to let Jaden go. She basically hands over Preston to the security guard, then goes up, in her 9-bedroom mansion and locks herself in a bathroom with Jaden. According to Kevin, there's a lot going on here. According to Kevin, number one, Jaden had a lot of allergies and he had really bad eczema. And according to him, his nanny, the woman Jenny, had told Britney's staff that, they were dropping Jaden off, but she should be aware he has really bad eczema right now. He has a flare on his legs and they have to put cream on it. And just remember, he's allergic to shellfish, so don't give him any of that. And Britney saw this eczema and decided it was bruises and abuse that was happening at Kevin's house. And this is kind of what led to this entire incident. Of course, Kevin is it's crazy because we told her it was eczema. But the other thing that's going on here that's going to be repeated throughout the book, and actually is a huge issue online when you read about Britney Spears, is that Britney is well known by the people around her to highly favor Jaden over Preston. It will be mentioned many times in the book, and you can read about it in all of the forums, that Britney has very much a propensity to reward Jaden, to protect Jaden, to give all attention and affection to Jaden, and to constantly be angry with her older son, Preston. It comes out a lot, and it is an issue that I believe is true. Now, I believe it could be exaggerated in certain ways, and maybe there are reasons why it's this way. We get it. But Preston is really, you can kind of see it here. He's just thrown back to the security guard, take him. It's Britney didn't even care if the abuse allegations were true. Britney didn't care if Preston went back and got abused, so she locks herself in the bathroom with Jaden. And this is a huge event that happens and is going to spiral into her getting into a conservatorship, because she locks herself in the bathroom with Jaden, and police and an ambulance has to be called. She may or may not have had a knife in there with her. She's crying, she's acting erratically, and guess what? The funniest part about it to me, it's just crazy how he tells on himself. Kevin never came over. There's a standoff going on outside the gates where he has his security guards sit there in an SUV with Preston, waiting for the police to come. And then there's like hours where the police are trying to talk her down. And he never comes to the scene. He never like jumps in a car, drives out there, like gets in the car with a security guard to take care of his son Preston and like be there for all of it. Instead, eventually, like hours into the standoff, he sends another security guard to go get Preston and bring him home. And then he literally says, and put Preston with the nanny. It's just so obvious that Kevin is so uninvolved. He's just an uninvolved parent. He talks about how hard this was, how awful it was, but he wasn't even there. He didn't even show up. He talks about seeing on the news that Britney was brought out in a stretcher and she had a straitjacket on. That's what he says. And she was crying. And so she gives Jaden a kiss. And Lonnie had been waiting to take Jaden home to Kevin, but actually he wasn't allowed to because Britney had made all these accusations about Jaden being abused. So Jaden went straight to the hospital as well, and he was checked over and CPS was called. And this is when Kevin actually shows up. He does go to the hospital because he's required to. And he has to give them all this information, and the nanny has to come and say, like, this is a thing, like Jaden has eczema. And apparently immediately the hospital staff was like, yes, this is eczema. We just have to go through the motions of having CPS investigate this. And nothing ever came of it because according to everyone involved in the situation, there really was no abuse going on in Kevin's house. There was just ignoring the kids and giving them to the nanny. Okay, the day after this happened, Britney was placed on a psychiatric hold, and this was kind of where everything started. This is what Britney, you know, she makes all these claims that she was put in a straitjacket, tied to a chair, left in a room, a padded room. I do want to say that these are things that happen in psychiatric hospitals. There are rules about it. Like, you know, if you're going to put someone in a straitjacket or you're going to put someone, you have straps that you strap them into a bed or onto a chair, there's always someone with them. And it's absolutely imperative, and it is law, that you would release them the moment they're no longer a threat to themselves or others. And I have been in situations, you know, they're hard, they're really hard situations. I mainly do pediatrics, but I've definitely been in situations where when we had to hold someone down or strap them in, and it's because they're being violent, like stabbing people with a pencil they found, or stabbing themselves in the eye with a pencil they found. You know, you go through these situations where, you know, you're strapping them in for their own good, you're staying with them, you're doing everything you can for them, and they seem like they've calmed down. They've agreed to take some medication, and you're like, okay, it's time to let them go. They're not a danger to themselves or others. You let them go, and they immediately grab something and start stabbing themselves in the eye again. So I do think that a lot of Britney's complaints about all of this, it's difficult to really say that what happened shouldn't have happened, okay? We don't know everything that she was doing, and there may have been reasons why this type of intervention was absolutely necessary for her. Again, the paparazzi comes into the picture. Kevin doesn't like that. He decides he's going to focus on getting custody of the kids, and that has nothing to do with him wanting more money from Britney, you guys. It just doesn't. So, you know, the courts really lean towards 50-50. Now he says the courts really lean towards 50-50 custody between the mom and the dad. But because of everything that was happening, he got full custody of the kids. And Britney would eventually be allowed to have visits with them, and he was also allowed to make all of the decisions about the kids. So he's like patting himself on the back that he was able to make this happen, and he thinks it proves that Britney was batshit insane, because according to him, they never do this, and they did it for him. But he was really annoyed by the whole situation because he did have to go to court repeatedly about it. And he talks about how, like, it was frustrating for him because Britney, I mean, he makes it like she was being crazy. She would, you know, she would have a court date, and she would show up and just start driving in circles around the courthouse. I hope she did do this because I find it funny. And like, it would be like 30 minutes have gone by, like they're 30 minutes late to starting the proceeding, and the judge is just like, we have been informed that Britney is here, but due to the fact that the paparazzi won't leave her alone, she's having to drive around the courthouse repeatedly. We're just gonna wait for her. And he said Kevin says it would literally be hours that they were like waiting for her to come in because she was just like driving around. I also find it really funny because apparently she was driving herself around. I find that interesting given like she's supposed to be so out of it. And Kevin of course has drivers for himself, but she's driving herself around the courthouse, and an incident occurs where she drives over the foot of a sheriff's deputy. This was also like on the front page of every paper. And she said like Britney was just kind of like, what do you want from me? Like, people are crazy. It was hard to get into the courthouse. And Kevin is annoyed by all of it because he's like, this isn't a reality TV show, Britney. I mean, we can make one together if you want because I want to get paid. But when we're not getting paid, I'm not going to wait hours for you. The crux of this chapter is that he received full custody of both kids. Chapter 17. This chapter is all about Kevin complaining that he had a lot of work to do and he couldn't work. He couldn't actually work in a real job because he had to take care of those two boys. I mean, nannies were taking care of them, but he had to take care of those two boys, and sometimes he had to talk to Shar about his other kids and what was going on with them. This was so hard on him that he literally had to go out and party just so he could feel better about himself. He also lets us know that he was making stupid money to show up at Las Vegas parties. He would make like $150,000 per party that he showed up for. And this is how he was making money for himself. And he says that he made a lot of money doing that. He also did a commercial. I don't know if you guys remember it or not. I'm going to try to put it in the video. I don't know if it'll be, sometimes they copyright me a lot and then I have to take the video down. But there was this really crazy commercial that he did for the Super Bowl that made fun of him so hardcore. It made fun of Kevin, and he did the commercial. He made $1 million for it. And he talks about how awesome it was because everybody treated him like a celebrity afterwards because they thought they were making fun of him, but to him, he just thinks he's the shit. So money, 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 money. That's what this chapter is about. He's making a crap load of money. He has full custody of the kids. He's getting drunk and passed out all the time. And he's hanging out with people like Snoop and Jay-Z. This chapter goes on and on because Kevin tells us all about like how proud he is that he got to be in the WWE. The fact that he just name drops like crazy. He gets to hang out with Johnny Nitro. I mean, he's just really into himself. He's feeling himself, you guys. And he's like, this was the best time of my life because Britney is not really like a huge part of his fame at this point, and people are just into him because he's a joke. Chapter 18 is all about the money, and I'm going to put up a video here explaining the money that Kevin was getting. And in this chapter, he's letting us know it wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough. One thing that really helped him out is that when he and Britney decided to sell the house in Malibu, he got half of the proceeds from it because he had contributed to the down payment, even though like his contribution was from the paycheck of doing the reality show with Britney Spears. So he's just really making out like a bandit, you guys. I mean, in my opinion, he made a ton of money off of Britney and everything that happened. Chapter 19 is about how Britney is a selfish idiot who paints herself as a victim when she isn't. One thing that happened during this point in time, Kevin makes it clear that Britney's family wouldn't really communicate with him what was going on with Britney. He was shut out of that. But also the family themselves were kind of shut out of it. Kevin argues that because of like HIPAA rights, there were a lot of things that were happening with Britney and the family wasn't even being included or getting all the information about it. And this is why Jamie really had to move forward to get a conservatorship, according to Kevin. He writes, the idea was to create some stability and ensure Britney had the structure she needed to concentrate on rebuilding her life and her relationship with our boys. At the time, he really believed it was the best move for everyone. And when Jamie took over, according to Kevin, everything calmed down a lot. Now, what's interesting about this chapter is that Kevin lets us know that regardless of the conservatorship being in place, there were still a lot of ups and downs, okay? There were times that he saw Britney and she was doing well, and there were a lot of other times when he saw her and she was just acting out of control. She was also frequently, this is according to Kevin, allegedly, fighting with people. So sometimes things were okay, and then other times she's fighting, like she had this boyfriend named Jason, who everyone said was really good for her. But according to Kevin, it's like 1 minute, everything would be good, he dropped the boys off, Jason would be there, everything's going fine, and the next minute they're fighting. Jason and Britney are fighting, so the boys can't come over. So he still believes that she's having this like roller coaster ride of a lifestyle. He liked it when Jamie was in charge because he liked dealing with Jamie for the most part, at least in the beginning. He enjoyed it because he did feel like Jamie just had Britney under control. It was easy to work with Jamie about like what days Kevin would bring the boys to Britney's house. Also, like Jamie was really good at setting up vacations for Kevin and Britney and the kids to go on. When Britney went on tour, Jamie set up for Kevin to have like a house near the touring area. Like every time Britney would move to a different stop, there would be like a house that Kevin could stay at with the kids. So Kevin was getting well taken care of by Jamie. Eventually, Britney decided to go back to music. This is when we got that album where she was like, "Do you want a piece of me?" According to Kevin, he says he doesn't know for sure, but it sort of felt like Britney wanted to do it. It wasn't Jamie forcing her to do it. It wasn't her producers forcing her to do it. This was something she wanted to do. And in these early days, Kevin is very supportive of the conservatorship. He felt that it brought a level of order to their lives that had been missing for years, and it was exactly what Britney needed. The next chapters are all about Kevin's accusations that Preston and Jaden from a very young age were showing a propensity to not want to go to Britney's house. He claims that especially Preston would just like cling on to him and not want to have to go spend time with his mom. He talks about Preston being afraid of her, hiding from her. Jaden was also affected by the ups and downs. He says that it was also very evident that Britney favored Jaden, and this was like playing a psychological game with Preston. He also saw the kids as having a lot of anxiety, especially Preston had increased anxiety, and he really attributes this all to Britney's insanity. It has nothing to do with him. Jaden, for the most part, showed like a little bit more ability to deal with Britney. This probably has to do with like their whole relationship and her supposedly favoring him. Kevin tried sending his nanny over to Britney's house, and the nanny flat out said she would never go there again. She never wanted to be around it. So this kind of is supposed to be an indication to us that things were really bad at Britney's house. Meanwhile, Kevin was at home providing all the love and support that Preston and Jaden needed when their mom was failing, according to what he wrote here. He was doing everything he could to protect them. One issue that they did have is, according to Kevin, Britney had a propensity for feeding the kids shellfish, and Jaden was horribly allergic to it. And this was a major issue, and they took it to court. And apparently Britney did, she admitted that, I think she basically was saying, I don't believe it. I don't think he is allergic. And she would give him shellfish. They went to court about it. His lawyers got involved, and it was a huge issue between Kevin and Britney. Later, this guy, and this is really interesting, this guy whose last name was Flores and used to be a security guard of Britney's, came out and made all these allegations against Britney, and he filed a lawsuit saying that, number one, Britney was hypersexual around him. She would walk around naked. She would pull out her breasts and like rub against him or whatever. He also made a lot of sad allegations about the way she treated the kids. He said that she hit them with a belt. that she intentionally gave them things they were allergic to. And at first, Kevin, he didn't want to believe it, but it was like some of the things that Flores was saying aligned with what he had seen and what his boys were saying were happening at the house. Now, the lawsuit was settled, and Britney gave a payoff to get the lawsuit taken out of court. So Kevin's kind of like, I don't know what to think about it. I don't know if it was exaggerated, but I do know some of the things he said lined up with what I was seeing. Kevin admits that there were other issues, like Jaden was kept on a pacifier for too long. To me, it's just, once again, it's like it's never Kevin's job to do anything, and it's always 100% on Britney that they're having these issues. Even though Britney really is, I mean, she's still the breadwinner, and everything that Kevin has, he has because of her. Everything that the kids have, they have because of her, but somehow it's always Britney's fault. So there were things like Jaden was kept on a pacifier for too long, and also she wanted to keep him in diapers past the time at which he really should be potty trained. So hypercritical analysis from Kevin. Then there are some really more serious allegations. For example, Kevin says, Preston once told me she had punched him in the face. I used to do every interview back then with a smile, keeping things light, always saying, we're doing great. You know, I would argue that there's a reason why you have that smile and why you're acting like everything is great, and it has to do with this. You know, I don't think that you did a lot of these good things out of the goodness of your heart. I think that Kevin's an uninvolved father. It's obvious in this book, and he's writing it. It's obvious. He's an uninvolved father. He is so interested in just getting his drug on that really, unless the boys did something totally outrageous, like shot someone in the face in his home, he's just like, everything seems fine. I was doing great at my house. The boys were doing great. They had a great life, you know. From his point of view, everything was great for the boys because he was basically off in La La Land most of the time. Now he's going to talk about Jamie, Britney's dad. Okay, it's complicated because according to Kevin, he really liked Jamie in the beginning because Jamie started the conservatorship, which led to him having custody of the boys and getting money from Britney. So he was happy about that. Jamie also did a good job of including him in Britney's life. He liked that. He restored order to a situation where Kevin felt there was no order. So he really defends Jamie. He lets everyone know that Jamie was probably doing his best. He wasn't trying to steal money from Britney. He was just doing his best. And he does mention, and I think this is really true, that it's hard for every family member of someone who's dealing with serious mental health issues. They don't know what to do. I have seen this time and time again. And everything they do is wrong. And everything they do has their bad points and their good points. And they want to help the person. And it is really hard. So he mentions that. And I think Kevin is 100% right in his evaluation of that situation. But he's very positive about Jamie. And he thinks that it's unfair that the paparazzi made such a negative fuss about Jamie. Now, here's the thing. Kevin also wants us to know that he had a momentary falling out with Jamie because Jamie started using alcohol again. And Preston and Jaden were visiting their grandfather Jamie, and Jamie acted like an asshole. He got really mad at Preston about something. Preston went to his room, locked the door. According to Kevin, Jamie beat the door down. And he didn't hit Preston, but allegedly he shook Preston and said, "You don't act that way." And he was drunk and he smelled like alcohol. And because of this, Preston called his dad and said, "I don't want to be here anymore." Kevin ended up trying to take a restraining order out on Jamie. And that was all over the headlines because it was kind of shocking. He took the restraining order out on Jamie for Preston. So Jamie couldn't see Preston for a little while. And Preston was like, "I hate my grandfather." And I think he was also like, "I don't like my mom either." He talks about the Free Britney movement and how they don't really love Britney, because if you love Britney, you would be willing to be more honest about what's going on and you would want her to actually get help. I think the Free Britney movement has done a lot of good things. This will be talked about in another video. And I also agree with some of what Kevin says here. We're at a point in time where there are just a lot of people in that movement who are lying to themselves, and they are not doing anything positive for Britney Spears by continuing to act like she's some kind of saint on a stick. Chapter 20. This is all about Kevin's new girlfriend and wife. Her name is Victoria. She has her shit together. She is like a really good volleyball player. She could have gone to the Olympics, but then she met Kevin Federline. She's a really good volleyball player, and she ends up being a volleyball coach, so she actually has a job. They move in together. They're living together. He's all about Victoria. He clearly thinks she's the first person in his life who's stable and has her shit together. And when she meets Britney Spears, Kevin alleges that Britney was being a total insane psycho. He talks about this incident. It was the first time Victoria met Britney, where Victoria's at his house in Tarzana. Britney shows up. She pushes her way through the gates, comes in there, which I don't really understand how all that would happen when she couldn't scale the gates before. But she gets in there. Her kids are with Victoria. Kevin's not there, of course, because I really believe Victoria is the one who really helped raise these kids. But anyway, Kevin's not there. Victoria's there with the kids. According to Kevin, Preston goes and hides. Jaden just kind of sits around because he's like maybe 3 or 4 or something. But the way that Kevin describes it is Britney's there because she has this big diaper, and she's like, "Hey, Victoria, here's this diaper for Jaden." And she walks in, and Jaden is in underwear because according to Kevin, he's already been potty trained. What Britney is doing sounds totally psycho. He's already potty trained, but she walks in, doesn't even say hi to Jaden, throws him down on the couch, takes his clothes off, puts the diaper on him, and then sets him back up, and walks away. She walks away. Victoria's watching all this. She's never met Britney before. She doesn't know what's going on. Britney runs upstairs into Kevin's bedroom and starts rummaging through the drawers. And this is the point at which Victoria asks security to go up and talk to her and have her leave. And they do that, and she just leaves. No problem. To me, I think this whole incident doesn't make sense. I don't think it happened this way. I think something like it might have happened, but this to me is an example of Kevin just telling a story that makes no sense. But the point of telling it is that Victoria's like, wow, she really is crazy. So it's another person kind of supporting Kevin's idea that, Britney's insane. Chapter 21. By 2009, Kevin's life had taken a turn. He got fat. And this chapter is all about how he went on like Celebrity Fit Club. And the point of the chapter is that he decides he doesn't like reality TV shows. And Kevin decides that reality TV shows are beneath them. And he doesn't like them anymore because they bring Shar Jackson, his ex-girlfriend and baby mama, on the show. And there's a lot of drama between them. And he feels like they were intentionally trying to create drama. I'm sure it had nothing to do with some kind of clause in his contract where he probably wasn't able to smoke hash in the house. But because of this whole experience, he decides he's not going to do reality TV anymore, you guys. He doesn't really say anything about Shar, nothing important, nothing insightful. Chapter 22. Victoria gets pregnant. And Kevin's like, yay, I guess. They have a child, and then they have another child, and he's really happy about it. That's the end of chapter 22. Chapter 23. He decides to do another reality show in Australia. I don't know everything about this one, and he doesn't talk about it too much, but he does say that he gets really annoyed because Preston and Jaden, they were supposed to come stay in Australia with him, and they didn't, and it had to do with Jamie, Britney's father, saying no, so this made him really angry. Eventually, he also gets angry because it gets to a point where he has to move back to Tarzana into a smaller 4-bedroom house that is only 2,000 square feet, you guys. He literally writes this in this chapter. He says it wasn't tiny, but it wasn't good enough for him, He's angry that he really doesn't have enough money to support the lifestyle that he had with Britney. And he makes this statement like $40,000 a month wasn't enough money to keep the boys in a lifestyle that they were accustomed to. Yeah, it's really hard to read this book. Any person, any normal person out there can say, Kevin, smack, wake the fuck up. Your kids don't have to live like that. You don't have to live like that. 99% of the population doesn't live like that, and you have not worked hard to deserve any of it. You don't deserve to live that way. If you have to make your house a little smaller, not have 12 Ferraris, That's okay. Nobody's crying any tears or playing the world's smallest violin for you. This does not affect us. It doesn't make us feel bad for you. There's nothing about it. There's nothing about the fact. He literally writes, at least the neighborhood was decent, safe, but it definitely wasn't Calabasas. He literally is writing like he didn't deserve to have to take a step down like this. It really sucks for him. In this chapter, the boys have become teenagers and they are letting Kevin know that they no longer want to see their mom on a regular basis. Now, there's been interviews with the boys where they've confirmed this. They have flat out said like they were unhappy with their mom. And in this chapter, Kevin addresses that the boys actually use their phones to tape record Britney doing and saying things that they felt were unfair and wrong, and they almost see it as abusive. Now, Kevin's kind of like, I couldn't believe that was happening until they got those videos, and then I knew it really was happening, and I decided they didn't have to see her anymore. Something that's really annoying, he doesn't bring it up here, but the videos were leaked to the press. The videos, in my opinion, they're not great. It's not, the way that any mother wants to be captured talking to their children, but they weren't abusive, in my opinion. Now, there may have been other contextual things going on that made it more abusive, but it's basically a mom kind of talking in a very harsh tone to her kids about stuff like, I can't believe we left the house and you didn't even put shoes on? This is insane. Give me your cell phone. Like, one of the videos is all about how angry Preston is that Britney took his cell phone because they went out somewhere to a store and he didn't put shoes on, and they're walking around in the store. She looks down and he has bare feet and she's like, what's wrong with you? You didn't put any shoes on? Give me your phone. To Preston, that was abusive, which just says to me that they weren't really undergoing any more extreme abuse. I do think that she was erratic. I think that that's kind of what we're seeing in some of those videos, is she's acting erratically, she's acting harshly, and the kids don't like to be around it. And Kevin supports this. They go years without seeing their mother. Kevin also alleges and tells a tale that, Britney was known to do weird things with knives. According to Kevin, the kids told stories of waking up in the middle of the night and Kevin and Britney would just be standing in their room holding a knife and be like, oh my gosh, I didn't know you were awake. But other things that happened, from Kevin's point of view, is that he got a phone call from Jamie saying, just so you know, Kevin, I removed all the knives from the house. And Kevin was kind of like, why? He didn't even know what was going on. But he heard, I guess through the grapevine, I don't know if it was from Jamie, that one of the reasons the knives were removed at that point in time was because one weekend, Britney went out and she just took a bunch of knives and she slashed up all of the upholstery in her leather cars. They said that the leather seats in multiple vehicles, one of them was like a $250,000 G-Wagon, had been slashed up and the knives were just left all over the seats. And this kind of of course, whoever found it was scared and alarmed. And that's when the knives were removed from the house. It was a little bit later that Britney was due to start her another residency in Vegas. And this was something that everybody was gearing up for. I think Kevin sees it like these residencies were really good because it kept money flowing in and, Britney was kept under control. But the issue with the second residency is that Jamie was hospitalized before it was set to start. And as soon as that happened, Britney just backed out of it. She refused to do it. From Britney's point of view, I think she said she didn't really want to do it and Jamie was making her. And so when he finally went into the hospital, she was like, F that, I'm done. From Kevin's point of view, he thought a couple of other things were going on. That basically she just wanted to go back to being at home and doing drugs all day. Okay, Kevin alleges that behind the scenes, Britney started on a downward spiral after ending her Vegas tour. And this is when Free Britney became huge and they were pushing so hard and they really were putting negative things out about Jamie. And eventually Kevin's kids, Preston and Jaden, started talking about how fans were coming after them. And this was really hard for Kevin to see happen. And we know that it is true. It did happen. Another point that Kevin makes here is that he believes a lot of the times that Britney got into fights with Preston and Jaden, it was because other stressful things were happening in her life. She might be very mad at her father, Jamie, or very mad at her sister, Jamie Lynn. And she would like kind of pick a fight with Preston about it. And a big part of her relationship with her boys was just constantly talking about and bad mouthing everyone in her life. That's according to Kevin. That they would come, to see her and she'd be like, you won't believe what your aunt Jamie Lynn's been doing to me. And like the whole entire conversation would just be her wanting them to also badmouth this person that she was angry at. And it could turn into her rage being focused on them. Kevin believes that he gave the boys a chance to just be teenagers, just be kids when they were at his house, which to me is like AKA he let them do whatever the fuck they wanted to do. I mean, he was busy doing drugs and doing his own thing. So I think one of the reasons that he was like the cool parent and the good dad is that, Victoria probably was like, okay, I'll provide some structure, but these aren't my kids, so I'm not going to raise them like I would raise my own kids. I'm not going to be as involved. And then Kevin was just like, let them do what they want to do. Who cares? So I think that, of course, this was the preferred house to live in. This was the preferred place to be. But I'm not belittling the idea that there was a lot of traumatic stuff that happened for Preston and Jaden in Britney's home. And a lot of it was because of Britney. We cannot completely absolve Britney from taking ownership of her actions, from taking ownership of, from what I can tell, not taking good care of her mental health. I think, based upon everything that we've been told, everything that we've seen, that Britney never really got her mental health under control. And there are a lot of different options out there to treat bipolar disorder, to help people who are addicted to drugs. And anybody, not just Britney Spears, needs to make the choice to participate in therapy and in situations that actually help you be a good person and help you be a good mom. And it kind of looks like Britney chose to never participate in any of that. And as much as we can say she had a hard life, people were taking advantage of her, everybody was taking her money, she dealt with a conservatorship, she still got to make some choices, and her choices continue to lead her down a path of not spending time with her kid. Chapter 24. The conservatorship ends thanks to the Free Britney movement, and Kevin says that he braces for the worst. He says that during this time he saw history repeat itself. He also found that his kids were really being stalked and treated badly online. Kevin says that when he watches Britney's videos on Instagram, it doesn't take a genius to know that she's high. One issue that arose during all of this is that Jaden really wanted to be the person to save his mom. So at home, he was really hoping to become the difference maker in Britney's life eventually. He loved her. He wanted things to be better. He had a lot of trauma from her, but he also wanted to see her get better. During this chapter, Kevin describes that Britney was kind of at a distance from the kids. They weren't seeing her, but she was doing really weird things. Allegedly, she would call them constantly and just act a fool on the phone. He describes an instant in which Preston was going to Europe with his girlfriend's family. So again, I think we have Kevin letting Preston do whatever he wants. So he was traveling to Europe with his girlfriend's family. According to Kevin, it was supposed to be a happy and carefree trip, but Britney called him and completely went off on him, talking about how horrible Kevin was and how there were all these problems in her life, and Preston was really frustrated by it and hurt by it. So there's a lot of little instances like this going on. Jaden also talks in the book. Kevin says that Jaden would get like a lot of text messages from Britney that were crazy and made him feel really bad. He would get them during school. And there was also a lot of ups and downs with all of it. Like one text message would be berating the child, and the next text message would be, I miss you so much, baby. Kevin also challenges the idea that Britney was locked up and controlled during the conservatorship. He says, personally, he saw Britney traveling everywhere, going on vacations, doing what she wanted to do. So he doesn't believe this was the case, and he thinks that this is part of Britney's victim mentality. Okay, now it's time for the last two chapters. In the last two chapters of Kevin's book, he acknowledges how great his kids are. He names each kid and he goes through like what's special about each of them. He also talks about his wife, Victoria, how loving and how special she is. You do get the feeling that he's like, they're this great because of me, but he says a lot of good things about each child. He acknowledges that he wasn't always perfect. He did the best he could, and he's learned a lot from it. He also talks about each famous family member of Britney, okay? He kind of makes excuses for a lot of them. One thing that he says is, like, he talks about Lynn, and he really likes Lynn, Britney's mom, but he does, I think we all can agree with this, he does see her as someone who just wants to avoid conflict at any cost. Lynn never really says or does anything that affects anyone. She's just there being like, oh, good for you, honey. Good job. Oh, you want it like this? That sounds good to me. Sort of like Felicia was for Britney at one point. Lynn's personality isn't very helpful to many situations that are encountered by Britney and Kevin, but you know, Kevin kind of gives her a pat on the head, like she's fine. The other part of this chapter is all about how much he likes Jamie Lynn. It's kind of funny because he's basically saying he never really talked to Jamie Lynn. But Jamie Lynn ended up writing these really long texts to Victoria, not to Kevin. I think a lot of news outlets get that wrong. She didn't write the texts to Kevin. The texts are written to Victoria. And it sounds like from the text that, you know, Jamie has a distance from them, but she's writing these texts to say thank you. Thank you to Victoria for doing a great job of helping raise Britney's children. You've done a great job. Kevin says that these texts honestly make him want to cry, and he just really loves Jamie and appreciates her. So she writes, honestly, this makes me want to cry because I feel so much for those boys. I'm her little sister by 10 years, and I can't imagine what her actual children must feel like at times. But I'm familiar with the feeling of being in a dinghy, trying to survive in a wave caused by another ship, feeling like you have to rescue yourself. I always wanted her to get better, especially for the boys. I started to resent her for how she treated them because it was clearly affecting them. But in order to really get better, she would have had to be honest and acknowledge the wrong she had done, as well as take accountability for certain circumstances, which she is incapable of doing. Okay, so this is in the last 5 pages of the book. In our next video, we're going to talk a lot about Lynn Spears, Jamie Spears, and Jamie Lynn Spears, and the role that they played in all of this. So in the next video, we're going to focus, we'll go back and look at these texts. We're going to talk about another issue that Kevin brings up where he talks about how Jamie Lynn sent Jaden a piano for his birthday. There's just a lot to talk about. It's complicated relationships between Britney and her family members, and we're going to expose a lot of what was going on behind the scenes. All right, this was a long book. I'm losing my voice. We got it all done in one video. Thank you for sticking with me here in Rabbit's Closet. The name of the game when it comes to this book is that Kevin needed some money. His last child support payment, I believe, was in September. Jaden turned 18, so it was over after that. I think he had been planning this book for a while. I think he makes some good points. He gives us some good information about what was going on with Britney that continues to support the idea that she's misusing drugs and she has some mental health issues going on. I think the one positive thing I see in this book is kind of standing up for the fact that his 2 sons really were treated poorly by Britney's fans, and that needs to stop. I take that away from the book as being an important point, okay? Otherwise, I think the book was a bid for money. I think it is really glossing over any mistakes that Kevin. It's setting him up as this heroic, amazing dad, and I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow when we go even further into this crazy closet.